listening to the Traditional Outdoors Podcast.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Traditional Outdoors Podcast. I'm your host, Steve Angel. I am joined this evening by my good friend, hunting buddy, and co-host, Mr. Nick View. And tonight we're going to start mixing things up just a bit on the podcast. Now, for the first few episodes, we've been focused mostly on both Nick's and my own first passion for the outdoors. That's bow hunting with traditional or primitive gear. But tonight our guest and our topic is going to shift a little bit, and we're going to spend some time talking about custom cutlery for time spent in the outdoors. Now, in my opinion, anyone spending time in the outdoors just needs a good knife. A knife that's dependable, built for the task at hand, and preferably a knife that looks good while doing what it does. Now, I own several custom knives, and honestly, for my purposes, I've relied on just two custom knife makers over the past 10 years or so. And tonight we have one of those knife makers joining us. I would like to welcome Lucas Bullington to the show. Lucas is the owner of Lucas Forge and makes knives of all sizes and to fit most any need you can think of for outdoor activities. Hey there, Lucas. How are you, buddy?
Going well. How you doing, Steve?
I'm doing pretty good. It's nice and warm and sunny again here in Georgia. We've had some wet weather last week, and it got a little cool, but the rain and the wet we had was a blessing, because I pretty much spent a full Sunday planting some food plots, and I wrapped it up just right on the heels of all the rain, so I sure can't complain. Is it warming up in the great state of Alabama?
It is. It's warming up. It's nice. It was beautiful today. I mean, sunny. I'm not sure what the high was, but it felt like probably about 70 or so. So it was very, very nice.
Good to hear. Good to hear.
You guys suck.
What's the matter, Nick?
It's well, we just get hail every day and snow and don't see the sun like it's Alaska, and apparently have an elongated winter. We're supposed to go on our first camping trip in like 2 weeks, and there's like some places in Michigan there's like a foot of snow on the ground right now.
Wow,
it's pretty crazy. But
some places in Michigan's got a lot more than that. I saw John McIntosh sitting at his mailbox waiting on the MLA Stick Talk. I saw a picture on Facebook, and it looked like he had a lot more than a few inches.
Yeah, he lives in Hesperia. That doesn't count. That's almost the North Pole. So yeah. But anyway, no, it'll warm up quick. But it's been a really long, and I mean, I'm supposed to turkey hunt Monday. It's crazy. It's been, we honestly have had so much wind and so much hail and bad weather that doing anything outside has been pretty much just pointless. So it'll get better soon, but we're not a weather podcast, so I guess we just I could just stop my complaining, and we can let Lucas talk about his passions and his knives.
When it comes to weather, I don't know. A lot of people in Michigan like to complain all the time. I know when we go up there to the shoots in the midsummer, we leave 110 behind, and it's, in the 70s up there, and everybody's complaining about how hot it is. So, anyway, I guess you guys just, you get all the luck up there.
Yeah, we were born to smile. Okay, it rhymes with itch.
Yeah, I got it. I got it. I knew where you were going.
But anyway, okay, yeah.
All right. Well, let's get to talking about some knives. One of my favorite subjects. So, Lucas, I guess let's just jump in. Give us and the listeners a little background on yourself, and go back to the beginning. How did you get started making knives?
Well, okay. So I started making knives. More or less, for a serious hobby, and then began professionally when I was about 16 or 17. I made my first forged knife, and started really seriously as a hobby. And then when I was 18, sort of the last part of my 18th year, got started into it. What I call professionally, I actually started making them and selling them. But it kind of started a lot earlier than that. I made my first metal knife out of one of these Simpson Strong ties, like a truss tie, when I was about 10, 9 or 10. And before that, I just always really enjoyed drawing knives and designing them on paper. And some of my friends and my younger brother, we would make wooden knives and kind of grind them on the concrete and make different blade shapes and stuff. And we tried coating them with epoxy to get better edge holding, which works to some degree. But cherry doesn't really make all that good of a knife. But it was fun, and it really, the early times with knives set a foundation for me. I didn't get my first knife until I was 9. My daddy said he wanted to wait, make sure I was showing responsibility, and so when I was 9, we went to U.G. White's Hardware in downtown Athens and picked out a little case knife. I've actually got it here with me, and a little 2-blade. I think it's called a peanut. And I took it home and promptly lost it. And that was exciting. I had it like a couple of days, I think. So ended up finding it a few years later after I'd got some other ones, But he really stressed with me trying to be safe with the pocket knives, with any knife, but use it and enjoy it. And just to get off on a little bit of a rabbit trail here, but that's one thing that I see sometimes at live events that I attend, where parents are very they really don't want little kids, young men especially, to own knives, have knives, even touch them. And in many cases they probably aren't responsible enough to, but that's because they haven't had any chance to be, I think. And I really feel like that responsibility of being given something that is could be dangerous but is very useful is just very special to a young man. At least it was to me growing up. And we had a lot of fun just whittling and doing what we call bushcraft stuff now, really just little outdoor projects. And that set the stage for what I would decide to do for a profession later on. So that's kind of how Lucas Forge started, strangely enough. Isn't it really neat?
I'm glad you went down that rabbit trail, Lucas, because I remember, so I'm the oldest of 3, and I got a knife, I got a little old-timer folder when I was like 10 or 11. And then because I had one, the middle brother, who was 4 years younger than me, he had to have one, and he got one way earlier than I did.
Yeah.
And he had this big, huge, like folding Swiss Army knife with everything in it. And then my littler brother, who was 2 years younger than him, got one like shortly after him. So I waited forever, and I thought I was like king of the woods when I got mine, and was really careful with it, and I babied it, and they kept on saying, "Oh, don't cut yourself, don't cut yourself." And my brother Matt got, the first day he had his, he cut his finger.
Oh.
And had to get stitches. And I remember my mom, like, he was carrying it around, like trying to hide it.
Oh no!
I was like, "Cut yourself." He was like, like blood dripping out of his hand. My mom was like, "Cut yourself, didn't you?"
Ouch.
But yeah, it's just amazing how a knife can make a kid feel when you get it.
Oh, it is.
It's like a totally different world.
It really is, and I can tell you. So I'll have to share my first knife story too, since everybody's going to do that. And I think it was probably about the same time as you, Lucas, probably 9 or 10 years old. I've got one of the old Boker 2-blade folding knives.
Oh, yeah.
And I was so proud of that thing. And I grew up on a tobacco farm. I think I've mentioned that on here before. And I got that knife and just carried it everywhere and stuck it in my, kept it in my front pocket. And within days after I got that knife, we actually were what we called top dressing tobacco plants, which was literally you were walking with a bucket of ammonium nitrate, and you were just taking a handful and dropping a little drop of fertilizer right beside each plant. And you obviously get it in your pockets. It gets in your clothes and everywhere else as you're doing that. And lesson to be learned, fertilizer will rust a knife faster than anything you could. So basically, my first knife ended up getting ruined within the first couple of weeks that I had it. It locked up and you couldn't even open it. But I got another one, so
yeah,
it recovered.
Oh, yeah. Just learned a lesson there.
Valuable.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, next question's mine, Lucas. And so my experience with knife making, other than the Michigan Longbow Association has, a few members that make knives, and, I've seen their work and it's beautiful. And but it's basically like forged in fire. Mm-hmm. I've never really known how people do it. And in that show, they make knives out of files and all kinds of different stuff. And I actually owned a Bowie that was made out of a file too. What are Lucas Forge knives made from typically? What do you use? Like blanks, or do you use files, or a little of both? Or what do you do?
Okay, so the typical knife from Lucas Forge starts as bar stock that I buy. The grade of steel is mostly either 01, which is a high carbon tool steel, 52-100 ball bearing steel. Use a little bit of 80 CRV2. All of these are a high carbon steel, and they will rust, but they will, if heat treated properly, they'll hold an edge well and they'll sharpen relatively easily. Now the reason for using bar stock that I buy in instead of the files and other things, for me, is just availability, being able to get a consistent product, steel product, that I can take and make a more consistent product with it, the finished product. All of the forged in fire knives made out of files and stuff, there's a lot of good steel in especially older files and springs and different farming implements. And I have made knives out of many of those different kinds of steels, especially early on, and it's great. And it's a lot of fun to be able to take something old and repurpose it like that and kind of give it a new, just a new life or make a new tool out of it. But that's the reason that you're going to see the Lucas Forge knives will be a specific steel types, because I can get in my heat treating specific results if I use a set method. So
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so I'll just go ahead and explain the different knives that I make. Forged knives, some of them are stock removal. So that means you either have a knife that's ground out of the bar stock that I buy. It's like 18, 48 inches long, different lengths. It'll be different thicknesses. Some of the blades are ground out of that to a pattern that I have. It's all freehand cut and ground, and then the bevels are ground, and then they're heat treated in the forge, and then the finishing work is done. Some of them are the shaping of the bevels and such are done by actually heating it up in the forge and hammering it and forming the metal that way, and then grinding the bevels off smooth and finishing from there. So that's your two different ways that I make the knives. The name Lucas Forge could imply that they're all hammer forged, and that's not how I meant it when I named it that. The idea of the forge for me is more of a philosophy. The old-time blacksmith shop had a forge, and it's what we would call a forge now, blacksmith forge, and it'd be a place where people would gather and exchange stories, and the blacksmith would make a lot more than one thing. He'd do all different kinds of things. He'd do repairs and make all different kinds of tools. And that's kind of my idea with the forge. It's a sort of a place, and a place for all different products could be made. So there's a little explanation there of the process.
Cool.
And you do, and I think all of the knives that I know all the knives that I've purchased from from you have had the aged finish, the patina finish, and then you also do like I forget what it's called. Is it a satin? Is that what you call it? I can't remember now.
Yes, it is.
And then the hammer forged.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and the satin and the aged are the same exact steel type. It's just the satin is the polished, and it's not a full high gloss polish, which is why it's a satin a little bit below the full gloss, and then so it's a little bit more of a working friendly kind of finish. And then the aged is actually, as you said, the forge and patina finish, and what that does is basically kind of give you a head start on the patina process, because the satin blade will develop a patina as well with contact with meats and stuff. So.
Well, and I can, so I a couple of things, just to follow up on some of the things that I heard you say, the sharpness and edge retention. I will say that I have yet to see a knife that showed up at my door that had a better edge than the ones that I've gotten from you. In fact, I would use the same word that I use for broadhead sometimes. They're scary sharp, and they're relatively easy to sharpen. And I tell you, the practice that I've found that works best for me is, not to really let them get dull to begin with, just to, use it once and then touch it up on usually just a leather strop, just to get that real fine edge back on it and put it back in the sheath and keep going. So, I could just vouch for that. They're very good at staying sharp and fairly easy to get sharp too.
Well, thank you. And yes, you hit the nail on the head with the sharpening process. Best to mostly hone, buff, use a steel or a strop. A leather strop is just great, and a combination of leather strop and a very fine ceramic or glass rod, which can also help you out there with your honing, is a winning way, to keep your knife sharp and good to go.
And I've used all three. So I've used crock sticks. I've used the ceramic sticks and steels as well. But I'll be honest, my favorite's just to use leather. Mm-hmm. I really, and I don't even use polishing compound typically. I like leather.
Oh yeah, that's great.
So, Lucas, I know because I know several outdoorsmen that do own your knives. I'm sure you have some people that are also probably buying your knives that are just collectors. But like I said, I know there's a lot of outdoorsmen that have purchased your knives. Now, I guess two questions: are you an outdoorsman as well? And if so, what outdoors activities do you enjoy when you're not making knives for other people?
Okay, so I know there's a whole lot of levels to outdoorsmen, and compared to my younger brother, for example, Ike, I'm not as much of an outdoorsman as he is. He is very accomplished, more so than me in a lot of different skills, outdoor skills, but I do greatly enjoy the outdoors, and I like to get out there as much as I can when I'm not working. And I really like traditional archery. It's been since I was very young. I have greatly enjoyed it, making bows early on, and then I discovered they actually made glass laminated bows at some point, which was a fantastic thing, and started buying them, and actually got into sort of the whole bow trading scene, and really enjoying just trying all different kinds of custom and factory bows and shooting them, and that's just a whole lot of fun, and just really getting out there with friends and enjoying the flight of the arrow is just great. It's hard to beat it for an outdoor activity. Also really like canoeing, and of course hunting and to a lesser degree fishing. I've enjoyed fishing, especially when I was younger, and I haven't got really had as much of a chance to fish seriously in the past few years, but I still try to get out and hunt, especially whitetail. Every season, I always get kind of excited. The first of the season, it's it's a lot of fun to get out there and see how they're doing. I just really enjoy seeing them out there too. So, and this part of the area where I live it's a great place to be outdoors. And I know all over the country there's so many beautiful places you can get out and enjoy, and I would definitely recommend it. It's great.
So, with all the activities you like to do, and all of your, just being in the outdoors, what is your favorite style of knife and why? To carry or otherwise?
Okay, so all of the knives are good for different purposes, and I was going to say my catch-all answer to that question would be, it depends. How do you like that for catch-all question?
There you go.
Okay. But no, seriously.
Yeah, we're gonna nail you down.
Okay. Yeah, I thought I'd try. I'm doing my best politician. Okay. So I really like the Jack Pine Special. If I had to pick one model, and it's just strictly personal preference. The knife is roughly similar to a Canadian willow leaf blade pattern, and it's got a palm swell handle, and just the way I just like the way it feels in my hand, and I like the way the blade is shaped, and the size of it is very nice. You can use it for woodcraft, doing a little fire making and stuff, and then take it and use it for deer, and It's not too big on your side, but it's plenty big enough for most things you'd have to do in this part of the country. So Jack Pine Special is the one that I like a lot. But it's hard to pick one, it really is.
That is a really cool looking knife.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, the Jack Pine. I have a Packer.
Yes.
And I love that. I always have that. You got a Packer too, don't you, Steve?
I do. That was the first. So I'm gonna answer that a little bit long way, Nick, and then I'll come right back to you. I promise. But Lucas, you and I actually met at it was actually at a traditional archery event at Alabama. I can't remember if it was it was one of the ones at Tannehill State Park. I don't remember if it was the summer or the spring.
I think it was spring fling, like, I don't know, three or 4 years ago, I think. Yeah.
Something like that. And I remember looking at all of your knives, and at the time just didn't have the money, in my pocket to buy one. And later, mutual friend of Nick and I, Tom Jurgensen, had bought a Packer, and he had bought a Packer for another friend of ours, Andrew Harper. And when I saw that Packer and actually skinned an animal with it, I was like, yeah, I'm ordering one as soon as I get back home, and I did. Mm-hmm. And it was the Packer, and absolutely love it. Sorry, Nick, go ahead.
No, I've always liked Steve's and Tom's, and so when Steve got me one last year, I was just thrilled, and I love it.
Oh, that's great.
I'm babying it thus far. I haven't really had a chance to. I mean, it's been out in the woods with me, but I kind of keep it like wrapped up in the cloth and like in the bottom of my hunting bin, just because I'm like I'm not to the point where I'm like carrying it around or anything like that. Maybe I will for shoots this year.
Yeah.
But I really, I mean, it's awesome. I really, really like that. And the other one I really like that you make is the Kepfart. Mm-hmm. That one's, is that how you pronounce that?
It is. Yeah. Kepfart.
That one's really cool too.
Oh, thanks.
I like. Yeah, there's so many. I could see how a man could own, or woman could own, several. It's kind of a wrap.
And Lucas, you haven't heard that whole story, so you actually helped me. You helped me pull something off with Nick, and because he's written about it, I've had a chance to kind of see it from Nick's eyes, but. I ordered that knife and had you ship it to Nick directly, and as soon as I knew it was on the way, I sent him a message on Facebook and said, "Happy birthday and Happy birthday and Merry Christmas" or something like that. And Nick was like, "What the heck? The timing's wrong on all of that."
I believe I said, "What, are you going away for a long time, or is this a cryptic way to tell me that you're leaving town?" But no. And then I opened up the mail. I got the message. I just picked the kids up, and I got home, and I got the message dinged, and I looked at it, and I was like, what the? And I sent him a couple messages back and said that. And then I opened up the mailbox, and there's a box from Lucas Forge on there, and I was like, oh, no. Are you serious? Because I am not, and Steve will tell you, I am not comfortable with getting gifts like that. And I probably bugged the hell out of him because he's given me some great ones over the years, and that just floored me.
So let me tell you what else he's not great at, and that's keeping a secret. Nick cannot keep a secret. Save his life.
What are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about.
So you're talking through a couple of these different models, and I don't even know off the top of my, what is it now? 2, 4, 6, 8. Looks like 10 or so different models that you actually keep on the website, and then I think there's actually some other ones that you do as well, right, Lucas?
There are, yes. There's quite a few. All the ones on the past work pages, and pretty much anything you see, I can build a knife similar to it. So there's a lot of variety there, and some people like to get on there and mix and match and do this handle and that blade, and any handle material you like to pick, and your blade finish, and change the blade length, and there's a lot of variety for you to check out on there.
So we didn't. Before we move on, that's one thing we haven't really touched on is the different handle materials that you have to choose from. And I know there's a lot, but I guess go into some of the different options that customers have to choose from, and maybe some special ones that you've done for customers.
Yeah. Okay. So the domestic hardwoods are very popular, and what I really enjoy working with, there's all kinds of exotics. I have quite a few different exotics listed that are available, and they are great and beautiful, but it is true that the domestic hardwoods have kind of become the thing that people seem to gravitate towards. The walnut, oak, and ash, and curly maple, all especially if walnut and curly maple are very popular. Osage is right in there. It's very popular wood. It's very tough, very hard wood. And then desert ironwood. Desert ironwood is pretty well on the top of the scale for the density of the wood and the natural stability of it. It's known as basically a naturally stable wood, and very often, or not very often, but in some cases you will have stabilized woods, especially like walnut and maple burls, that would not have structural stability on their own. Those woods can be impregnated with a resin, and then they're what's called stabilized. They're water repellent to a degree, and they're great for using on a handle. I use that material for knives too. It's beautiful stuff, but the desert ironwood is essentially naturally stable in the way that those resin impregnated woods are. So it is a fantastic natural material, and then of course you can get into the bones, like smooth cow bone for a really sort of primitive period correct look, and also elk antler. I don't do a whole lot with whitetail antlers, some, but they don't tend to be big enough and the right shape to cut scales or slabs out of for a handle. So for most of the full tang knives, it's going to be elk antler. But that's just some of the options, and then that's not even taking in the exotics. I mean, you've got the rosewoods and cocobolo, just all kinds of beautiful choices that you could pick. But and
so, Lucas, not to interrupt you a bit, but when you're talking about, you mentioned the whitetail antler being a bit small for scales. I guess for people that haven't seen your knives, for the most part, I know there's at least one exception, but we're talking about some what I would refer to as some manly knives. I mean, these knives are pretty beefy. I mean, they're stout knives, and therefore the scales are I mean, they're decent size, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, and of course they vary somewhat, but they tend to be pretty somewhat on the thick side. I like to give you a good grip, and like to leave enough length in the handle. You know, they vary. If you want an easier to carry, easier to handle, or easier on the belt knife, I do have some with slightly smaller handles. But yes, in general, the handles I try to leave ample size for you to grip.
Yeah, and Nick's actually been oogling over one of those smaller knives, haven't you, Nick?
Yeah, I've wanted like a caping kind of knife for a while for, skinning, and that Pro Skinner looks awesome.
Yes. Yep, Pro Skinner. I'm glad you like it. Ike, my brother, he helped me with designing that. He really mostly designed the knife, actually. And he was doing taxidermy and trapping in a lot at the time, and so he kind of put the idea to me, and so we got it made. And yep, it's a fine blade, as you can see. I mean, even in person, it is just a really, really fine, nice tip, nice point to it, and works great not only for small game and trapping and stuff, and birds, and as a fish knife, it'd be good too. But also, up to deer size, if you're just skinning with it, it's good for that too.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Just those, hard to reach areas, where you gotta get in there. I mean, that just looks perfect.
Yep, and like you're indicating, like a caping knife.
Yeah,
good for that, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I always kind of wanted one, but I mean, of course, I only have one really good knife, the one that Steve got me. So I wanted to start there because that's my favorite kind of knife, is like the Packer style knife. I've always been more attracted to those kinds of knives, but that's one of the things I've always thought of was, man, I could really use a caping knife or something right now. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
well, the Packer, it is true. The Packer has been a very popular knife, and it's such a convenient size, and that drop point with that size blade and the ease of carry on your belt, not quite as long, and it's every bit as much blade as you need for deer and even hogs and stuff, really. I mean, it is a good size for that, so that was a good choice.
Well, it's like you were saying too, that handle is super comfortable. The first thing I was really impressed with, because like I was saying, I've never really owned a quality knife before, like a really well built top of the line knife, and the first thing I noticed right away before I even took it out was the weight. I mean, it felt so good in my hand. I mean, it just was like, it felt substantial. It wasn't like the other ones I have that you just kind of whip around or whatever, or drop in the woods or whatever it is, the cheaper stuff. Yeah. And then the second thing was the sharpness, obviously. That was pretty crazy. And Steve was like, one of the first things Steve said was, "Don't cut yourself."
Yeah. Well, I told him the other thing is, there used to be an old wives' tale about, giving a friend a knife, it would cut your relationship. You ever heard that, Lucas?
I'm not sure if I have or not. I don't think I have.
Yeah, it was an old. I mean, I heard it growing up, so it it could have been a localized thing, or maybe it was just people didn't want to spend enough money to buy a knife for a friend. I don't know, but I have heard that. And Nick, you're right. I'll even add to what you said. It's not a small knife, the Packer. It's a decent sized knife, but the balance on it is just phenomenal, and that the way the handle fits in your hand, for me at least, and I've got fairly large hands, and I know Nick does as well, but the leverage that handle gives you. I mean, I've said this to a lot of people over the years using that knife, is it's one of the few knives that I don't hesitate one bit reaching, up into a whitetail and just, cutting through the breastplate from one end to the other. I mean, you just twisting it and breaking ribs. I mean, you just don't think about it. It's just, the knife's gonna take it. Just keep asking for more. I just love it.
That's great.
So
excellent.
I'm gonna shift gears here a little bit on you, Lucas, and I'm gonna try not to start any kind of brotherly rivalry here. But you've mentioned Ike a few times, and I know from monitoring your website over the years and some things that you've done there, and I actually, because of that, actually got out and followed up on some of the things that your brother Ike does as well. But now I know he used to do all the leather work for you as far as your sheaths and so forth. And Nick, I can't remember which sheath you got, but I have the one of the cross draws, and then I have a few of the other sheaths. And
it's cross draw.
And they're just top notch as well. But does he still do the leather work? And I think he actually did some forged stuff too, like axes or something, didn't he?
Yes, he does. He does leather work, and he's doing axes too. He does a great job with the sheaths, like you said. I'm with you there. It really amazed me when he started doing that, how fast he learned, and he's very quick at it, and he's very professional, and the quality of the work I've really come to enjoy watching him perform in that way. It's just great. But he's been doing the sheaths for me for, I think, about 3 years. It may even be 4 years. I meant to check with him on that, but it's he's doing the axes. He started forging axes just not too long ago, and it's the same with the axes. He's really come on and really putting out excellent quality work. The axes, he's got I think 5 different models and all different handle lengths and head weights, and several different finish options on hickory handles. And so he's got a website for that. He's wolfvalleyforge.com, and he's up and going on that. So he's still doing the sheaths for me, but and he's going to continue that for now. I'm not sure what the future looks like there, but I really wish him well with the axes a lot, because he's doing a great job. He's also got a video out, and he's working on other projects as well. As far as the DVDs, he's got a fire making DVD, and he shows how to make fire with lots of different methods other than matches. I think he even talks about matches a little bit in there too, but he has history in there, lots of how-to, and it's a very enjoyable DVD to watch. It was very well put together. So that's what he's up to, and it's just great to be able to work with him on a day in and day out basis. It's really a lot of fun. We have a good time. So
now, Lucas, does he do anything on YouTube too?
I think he has a YouTube trailer for his DVD on there, but I couldn't tell you really how to get to it, other than you could type in Experience with Ike, and his website for the DVD is experiencewithike.com. But unfortunately, I'm not 100% sure that would bring that video up, but I think it might.
I love that name. Experience with Ike. That's awesome.
And I know he does have at least one video on YouTube, because I've watched it, and I think it's kind of an intro to the Experience with Ike DVD that he's got.
Yes.
And I want to say it was on YouTube. I know I've seen it, because I really got you can tell he really enjoys it, because he's kind of passionate about it, and it really comes through in the video.
Yes, he does. He really does, and yeah, I'm glad you saw that. I had seen it, but I couldn't remember if I'd seen it before they posted. I think I saw it before they even put it up on there. But that's cool.
And you said he had been doing the leather work for you for 4 years, and I guess we didn't either didn't ask, or maybe you just didn't get that far into it. But so officially, how long have you been doing Lucas Forge?
So officially, that's going to be 9 years this fall.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's going to be. It's pretty big. It's always kind of a little bit sentimental when it comes around, in the fall. It's pretty. it's amazing, really, because it's just gone by so fast. It's amazing to look back and realize it's been 9 years already, but not quite. But this fall it will be. So it's been quite a trip. It's been neat. It's been a lot of fun.
Well, anytime you can do something where you have passion in it and make a living out of it, it's really great. And I do want to say, and I meant to bring this up earlier, but for anyone that's listening to this that wants to visit your website, they can either go to lucasforge.com or they can go to customhuntingknives.org. Both go to the same website, and there's, if they want to pick up the phone and call you, I know there's information there as far as, ways to get in touch with you.
Yes.
When it comes to ordering a knife, and I'm going to help you out with this because I've probably ordered more knives from you than you have, Lucas.
That's right.
But and correct me if I'm wrong here, but each model on your website has a base price. Mm-hmm. And then there are upgrade options for some of the exotic woods. Maybe if you want to do, let me see, I'm trying to think. If you want to do exotic woods or like antler or horn or something like that, there's a little bit of a not a lot, but there's a little bit of an upcharge for that. Mm-hmm. You have the option of doing file marks or jimping on the blades right ahead of the handle.
Yep.
And I'm trying to think, what other is there? Oh, so you can do, your standard is the brass pins, but you also offer the mosaic pins at I think it's like a $20 or $25 upgrade for that. Am I missing anything on the upgrades, or is that pretty much?
That's pretty much. Let's see. Other than that, you can get on some of them. You got like a longer blade length available. The forged finish on the blades that adds some to the
That's
price,
right.
And then you got sheath options on some of the knives. You can get the cross draw sheath and the trekker sheath for an additional cost. There's a snap style sheath for the classic hunter model. That's also an additional charge. But yes, you pretty much got it. It's got the jimping and the pins and blade finish, blade length, and handle material sheaths.
And to actually place an order and get a knife in the order queue and to set up the build process is a whopping $25, which has always just impressed me for the quality of product that you produce. To be able to place an order for a custom knife made to pretty much to your specs, whatever you want. $25 gets the process started, and that's pretty impressive.
Absolutely. Well, it's I like to think that the knives are priced for the quality that a lot of people, if they'd like one, can get one, and even if you look at a lot of production knives on the market today, the price of custom knives really isn't that far off of like a higher end name brand knife cost, so that's the thing there. And as far as the low deposit cost, I just really like working on kind of a small business, sort of a level of trust, and I've really found people to be nice and people to be good. I have a lot of good customers, and that's very encouraging too.
So, and that kind of leads me into one other question that I had in my mind that I was going to ask if I got a chance is, so you mentioned, and I've got some knives that I would say are on par, that are mass produced as far as price, like Spyderco's and some of that definitely not the same knife in that they're all the same, but they're quality knives and they're probably about the same price, but. What do you say to people that have the opinion that custom knives are are just too expensive when they can go out and buy, a run of the mill Schrade or something like that from Walmart for $29.95.
Well, what I would say, and there's several different approaches you can take to the question, but there are lots of different reasons that you might go for a custom knife, a handmade knife. But here would be a few things I might say to the person. It would be the feel of the knife for a custom knife, a handmade knife. The feel and the design are two important aspects to consider. Rounded edges, comfortable handle, the balance. When you pick it up, if it feels like you just want to use it, and then also a handle that's going to be smooth and is going to actually, while you're using it, not fatigue your hand and not give you blisters and etc. Another thing is the performance of the blade, the performance of the knife in general, but the performance of the blade, and with a handmade knife with using high quality steel and using a good heat treat, you're going to get your edge holding, and you're going to get fairly easily resharpening, and that's worth a lot, because there are some of the cheaper knives out there, they're just not going to hold a real good edge typically, and they can be rather hard to sharpen, and that could be an overgeneralization, but the quality of the steel in the handmade knives is another thing to consider. Also, the fact that having a good knife just can make tasks not only easier but more enjoyable too. Just having that knife that is a product that you can enjoy. I guess pride of ownership would be the term to use. Not necessarily, but to some degree, it's the idea of having something that's an individual made, and so that would lead me into the whole idea of choosing to vote with your money for small businesses and supporting craftsmen is something that some people do. It's kind of a lifestyle choice, intentionally choosing to buy small, buy local in some cases, and that's anything from our hunting equipment to our food. The idea of buying from small businesses and craftsmen is you're taking money you make, and you could spend it anywhere, and you might give a little more to buy something from somebody that you can tell they're trying to do the right thing, and they're trying to do good work. So
I
Anyway.
totally agree, and pride of ownership is exactly what I was thinking when you started talking about it. I was one of those guys that had, my very first nice knife that I owned was my dad gave me one of his folding old timers that he had for a while, and that's kind of a knife I've just held because my dad gave it to me. I haven't really done much with it. I've mainly just I've carried whatever cheap knife I could buy at Meijer or Walmart or whatever, skinning knife, the basic cheap skinning knife that you can buy that I don't care about. It's just something I just use, and if I lost it in the woods or I forgot it after I gutted the deer and then you left it out there, I think twice about even going back out to get it. It's just one of those things. But when, now that I've got this knife, it's my knife. It means something to me. And not just because it was a gift, but it's my knife. It's something that, and most of the time you hear from people that kind of the naysayers about this kind of thing is I can't afford that. Well, the thing is usually you just bought something else. It wasn't a priority for you. maybe you didn't need that second longbow or that, third rifle or that new fishing rod or whatever. When a knife, and the funny thing about a knife is that you use a knife for everything. I mean, anything you do in the outdoors, you can use a knife. So it's sometimes we don't prioritize things the way we should. It's kind of like, I always go back. I love, just with traditional archery analogies, somebody will buy a $800 bow and then go as cheap as they can on the string, or as cheap as they can on the tab, or the arrows. And it's like, what are you're totally not understanding this. Like, if you're going to go all out, then just do it right. Don't cheapen one part of it. And I just think that a knife is like, Steve used to always tell me, and I put this in the article I wrote about it, about the gift, was, every man ought to have a good knife at some point in their life. One they can depend on. They can own a lot, but there's one they carry, one they depend on. And I always kind of admired that, but I never really bought into it because I was one of those people that was like, well, I can use any knife. I'd rather have this other bow or whatnot. But what it boils down to is it's what are you prioritizing? I mean, yep. And once you have it, like I've got that knife now, I'm so happy I have it. I know every time I go out anywhere this year, I'm going to have that knife, no matter what I'm doing. And what else can you say about that, other than like your wallet or your boots, or that you carry in the woods constantly?
Well, you see, right. and beyond pride of ownership, I think a bigger part of it is pride of craftsmanship. I mean, I can tell just by looking at the knives that you put out, Lucas. I mean, you put your heart into every one of them. It's not like they're just being mass produced and parts being cut out of a CNC and snapped together. I mean, there's a little bit of Lucas in every one of them.
Mm-hmm. And there literally is some on some of them.
There's your slogan. There's a little bit of Lucas in every knife.
Yep.
That's great.
But yes, and I appreciate y'all's views on that, because it is, and it's kind of like to what you were saying, Nick. It's almost like having that custom knife, that handmade knife, is almost like this similar experience to getting that first knife. Maybe not quite as much, but it's a little bit of that kind of a feeling, I guess. I don't know, but because I remember getting a custom knife myself before I started making knives. Or actually, I was just early into making knives. I actually bought a few different ones, and it's kind of a different feeling. You're supporting somebody, and it's a different level of craftsmanship that you can kind of get into a little bit in a different way. So anyway, I don't know if that would convince somebody, but I think we're convinced, so that's okay.
There you go. And I mean,
I'm convinced, definitely.
Well, there ain't much of a story behind a $30 Schrade at Walmart either. I mean, nobody's going to come up and say, man, that is a nice cheap knife you got there. I mean, where'd you get that? Well, Walmart. Right. Thank you for asking. I mean, it's just not. That's right. It's just not really. Not that there's anything wrong with necessity, and there's no. But they're you buy them. You don't care what happens. You toss them. That's pretty much what they are. But anyway, yeah.
Well, and I don't know about now. I mean. Schrade has made some good knives in the past, and they probably still do. Yeah. But it's not the $30 knives or the $20 knives that you pick up at your local department store. So I'm not picking on one different brand. It's just there's a big difference between mass produced and custom.
And that's one thing I recognize too. What you're saying, Nick, about the necessity. I mean, if I totally understand, as well as a custom knife maker, that when y'all buy knives from me, you are making a conscious decision. You're saying, hey, I'm going to buy one of these because of all these reasons we're talking about. And I really appreciate that. And I respect that position a lot. And so what I try to do, I don't really, as you can imagine, I don't really have to worry about shopping for knives because I have different prototypes to test and stuff, but I try to take that same mindset with other equipment that I might need and sort of pay that forward into the whole idea of the small business sector and the local markets whenever possible. And so if you do that, then it all goes around. I just recently discovered that Steve is making strings. I didn't even know that till the other night, so I'm gonna have to see about getting some strings. It's when I need replacing. So, it's just stuff like that. It's a community thing. So sure. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, he was those cheap strings I was talking about.
He was in. Oh,
wow!
No, Steve makes a fantastic string, but we joke about it because every time somebody starts something like a thread or something on Facebook that says, oh, hey, where should I get my strings? And they're like, oh, you can get this, and this for $6. It's and anytime somebody says, oh, it's $20 for a string, I ain't paying that. It's just a funny kind of thing that we've observed over the years with the frugalness of the traditional community, and God love them, but it's funny when you see it.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's kind of like putting the cheapest tires you can get on your late model truck or something. I don't know.
Well, and then
sort of funny.
And it's just, and I agree with you about supporting the little guy, and you hear all the buy American, and then as soon as they figure out that they're going to have to pay a heftier price because they're getting better craftsmanship, a lot of people turn and go buy the cheaper one that was made in China or wherever, but
right.
Then they turn around and say, buy American. So, yeah, I agree with you. I'm the same way. I try to support, the small business, the local guy as much as I can, whenever I can, just for those reasons. So.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Well, gentlemen, I think we probably ought to look at wrapping this one up. Nick, have you got anything else you wanna toss Lucas's way?
No, Lucas, she answered all of our questions, and it was a great interview. And I love the knife. I'm gonna enjoy it, and it probably won't be the last one I buy from you. And I'll definitely keep you updated, and hopefully I'll get a picture with it on a deer this year. So
that would be great. And yeah, I was going to mention to y'all and everybody listening, got the knife drawing this fall. Get on the website, go to customer pictures, and you'll see all different pictures that people have sent me, and send your picture in with your either like still life, like out in the woods or something, or with your trophy animal, whatever it may be, fish. And send those pictures in, and they get like entries, and then we'll do a drawing for a knife. Usually do it around the first part of December, so you'll get it like for Christmas. So
nice.
Just send them in. I love getting the pictures and posting them up there. It's a lot of fun. It really is.
Awesome. And I'm gonna start, now that I know that Nick's got another model in mind, I'm gonna start putting pressure on him on a regular basis to, have you ordered that Skinner yet? So
then my wife will say, "Did you shoot that deer yet?"
Yes, she will. And Nick's on a two year a deer plan. So although this is your year, Nick,
it's my year, creeping on 2.5, maybe 3.
This is your year.
This is the year.
Right.
This is the year.
This is
the year of Nick. And actually, you know what? I'm hoping that I've got a hunt planned with Steve in November, in Georgia, and I've yet to get a deer with Steve in Georgia. And I'm really hoping that happens this year. That'd be very special.
So, we're going to do everything we can to make it happen. If you're here and it's daylight, we're going to be in the woods somewhere. So we're going to do everything we can to make. I've
already got a sapling under my belt, a Georgia sapling.
Yes,
it's genuine Georgia sapling. and Steve made a trophy of it in my workshop.
Wow,
to
that's pretty special.
To commemorate it.
That is special.
And spend
I'll have to send you a picture or two of that. Lucas.
Spend an unbelievable amount of time and thought on it. And it's a genuine Georgia sapling with an arrow in it. And but now hopefully I can turn that into an actual deer this year. That'd be fantastic.
I hope so too. I'm looking forward to the picture.
All right,
that'd be great.
Well, Lucas, we both do greatly appreciate it. Before we let you go, just make sure I don't mess this up. For anyone wanting to contact Lucas, look at his knives, order a knife. Again, the website is lucasforge.com, or you can go to customhuntingknives.org. And I'm also going to throw Ike a plug here as well, and I'm just going to ask you to speak to Ike and see if maybe we could get him on here as well, because it sounds like he'd be a real good gentleman to talk to, and I've never spoken to him. But Ike's website is wolfvalleyforge.com. If you're looking for a camp axe, that'd be a great place to start. And then his Primitive Skills, and I think it's mostly Primitive Skills DVD, but
fire starting
experiences with Ike. That's I looked that up. It's www.experiencewithike.com. So check both of those out. And Lucas, again, been great. Maybe we'll get together and get you on here again in the future. We'll figure out some kind of a special occurrence or a special reason to get you back on. We've really had a blast talking to you, and look forward to having you again in the future.
It's been great, guys. Thanks a lot for having me. I enjoyed it as well. And Steve, Nick, y'all take care and God bless.
Thank you, Lucas. You too.
Take care, my friend. I'll tell you all what, that Lucas is just a great guy all around. You just won't find many people more down to earth or easier to do business with than Lucas. And honestly, it's his old school attitude and traditional values that keep me coming back time and again, just as much as it is the beauty of his knives. In fact, I just recently ordered my 5th knife from Lucas, and I already know it'll turn out to be an absolute beauty. In case you're curious, I ordered an Elk River Hunter. I chose a 5/16 inch thick blade as an upgrade. I added Desert Ironwork scales and mosaic pins and some thumb jimping above the top of the blade. And I honestly can't wait to get it. Throughout this chat with Lucas, 2 things during the discussion really stood out for me. And first, it was Lucas' comments and thoughts about kids and owning their first knife, how that used to be a good life lesson for a young man owning his first knife, and understanding the responsibility that went along with the ownership of that tool. And how times have changed. And I'm a firm believer that it's not the kids that have changed, but it is we, the adults, who have done so. Take some time to think about that. The second thought Lucas shared was his desire to purchase from small businesses and entrepreneurs whenever he could. So many times we all find ourselves shopping for that bargain and at the same time complaining about the large box stores or massive online vendors. Sometimes it can be most rewarding to seek out someone that has a passion for crafting or making the item by hand that you're looking for, rather than simply trying to save $1 or $2. Not only will you typically end up with a higher quality item, but each time you use it, you can be reminded that you help someone follow their passion. It just doesn't get much more traditional than that to me. Well, folks, that's it for this week. I hope you've enjoyed the episode, and if you did, please take time to leave us a rating or a review. And be sure to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Podbeam, and pretty much any other platform. And that way you'll be sure you're notified when new episodes are released. Until the next time, be sure to get out there and enjoy our great outdoors. And if you can, take a kid along. Be safe, be responsible, and be sure to set a good example for your fellow outdoors, men and women. So long, everyone.